Hello and welcome to the Level Line podcast at Tenkara Angler. My name is Matt Sment. I'm here tonight with Anthony Naples and Amanda Hoffner, all of the Tenkara Angler team, and we're here to talk about a bunch of random stuff. First of all, hello. How are you guys tonight?
Hey, folks. I'm doing well. Finally out from under the heat dome here in Pittsburgh, and starting to think about fishing again. It was off my mind for a while. The last time I was out was like brutal, so I'm starting to think about it again.
And I'm finally back home recuperating, but working after the White Mountains Tenkara Campout. So that was a good day, 10-day excursion for me.
Outstanding. I've been home for a little bit here, but hasn't been much fishing because we've been dodging flights of tornado spawning thunderstorms, and the driftless is really pretty blown out there for a while. I hear it's clearing up, hoping to, because I'm going to try to fish it a little bit this weekend. But yeah, so let's get started. First of all, Amanda, why don't you tell us a little bit about your White Mountains trip, both the event and the trip itself?
Sure. So the event that I've attended and helped co-host, I guess volunteer for this was my third year, was started by Bill Holleran of Red Brook Tenkara. And he wanted this to be like a grassroots event that started, I believe, with like 30 to 40 people the first year. Then it bumped up to 50 to 60. And this year it was greater than 70 Tenkara anglers hanging out, from beginner to, expert, whatever you want to call yourselves. But yeah, it was a great turnout. Everyone had a lot of fun. There's a lot of water just in the area, in the Gorham and I guess Conway area of New Hampshire in the White Mountains. Because this was our third year, we pretty much are able to tell people where to go, what kind of waters to hit, whatever they're looking for to get. There's stock trout, there's natives, there's wild fish all over the place, hundreds of miles of streams just up that Route 16 right there. I'm really glad you were able to attend, Matt, as well, Anthony, next year. It was great. I had a really great time hanging out with friends that I had met in the previous years to new friends that I made this year. Yeah, it was a great event.
Yeah, it was a really good time. And before I, asked you a few more questions in detail about it, you had a little bit of a family connection going on this year with your trip.
Yeah.
You want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So my sister Ashley, she's been a missionary in South America for the past 9 years. I only get to see her maybe once every 1 to 2 years. And I got to spend 10 days with her straight in a car, trapped in a car with your sister. But it was great. I it's been a decade since I spent that much time with anyone other than my girlfriend. So it was really refreshing. We got to catch up, and I got to learn that she is an incredible Tenkara angler. I mean, she just picked up the rod and she was catching fish, and I was like, I don't know if I'm yelling at you, so that's why you're doing so good. Again. But she was fantastic. It was really nice to see her out in the stream and finding her peace the way that I do. I know she had some hesitation because she said it was my thing. So that was a little weird to hear, but I tell everyone that I meet and that talks to me online or that, whatever, I really want everyone to enjoy Tenkara the way I enjoy it. So I was really, really happy and it re-energized my passion for Tenkara just to see her loving it so much. And I gave her a few of my rods that I have in my collection, and she's gonna be off to the Philippines in November, so I'm really excited to see what she does in her future with Tenkara.
Yeah, very cool. I was lucky enough to get to fish with you guys, and actually had the perfect timing to arrive
right.
just as she was catching her first fish.
Number one, yeah.
Snap a few pictures, so maybe we can edit those in to the show if you want to share those.
Yeah, of course,
that'd
please.
be pretty cool.
Make it a family affair.
And then, yeah, so I guess back to the event itself, there was a lot of, as Amanda said, there was a lot of varieties of water up there, from just tiny blue lines. And I mean, like, I stayed in a KOA that had I wouldn't even call it a creek or a stream. It was maybe a foot wide and maybe 6 inches deep, kind of running between a couple of campsites. And there was a brook trout in there, so that's how tiny you can go with these blue lines. And then these massive, huge, sprawling freestones that you can see, in spring or in flood, that are just rocking boulders and trees all over the place. It's really a diverse region. Can you tell us a little, what do you got, Anthony?
What is the I don't want anyone to burn any spot burning, but what's like the major watershed in that area?
Oh, that's not spot burning. So Dolly Copp is the main campground right there, but the group campsite that we stayed at is Barnes Field. It's right next to Dolly Copp. Dolly Copp is where our showers are, but it was a pretty primitive campsite, but it's off I'm going to say it, the Peabody. It's spelled Peabody, one word, but the locals pronounce it Peabody, like Peabody. Yeah. So you could definitely tell when someone was not from there. I tried to warn some people so they wouldn't get called out, but the Peabody Rivershed. There's also the Ellick River that runs through there.
The area was stocked a little bit, and so I did get into some stocked browns and rainbows. I got into some wild browns that were really feisty, but the star of the area out there is really the wild brook trout, of which there are in quantity to make you think that they're falling out of the sky, to be honest. If you want to catch 5 to 10 inch brook trout all day, that whole area around Mount Washington is the place to go. And just some of the most stunning scenery I've ever fished. I'm going to tell you right now, folks, I've traveled a lot, fished a lot of places in the last decade in the United States, and this place instantly became my second favorite fishery. Just really over the course of like this 2-3 day visit, so it's amazing. And if you can't get up there for the event, which I hope you will next year, support the event, because Bill and the whole crew did a great job on it. But just get up there and fish the area. Just for God's sake, take bug spray. Because wow, it got so bad at one point, I just threw my wallet on the ground and I was like, "Don't hurt me. Do whatever you want. Take my wallet. Don't hurt
Hostage.
me." Yeah, they were brutal up there. How have the bugs been for you there, Anthony, in Pennsylvania?
No, I haven't run into any bad bug activity at all, really. Yeah, it's been, anywhere I've gone anyway, no biting insects. So fingers crossed.
Nice.
Good for you.
Excellent. All right. So do we have anything else we want to discuss about the White Mountains or about the event?
No, I just recommend it to anyone and everyone if they want to see a different part of the country. I think it is I want to say an underrated, just like I thought Western North Carolina is underrated. I also think the White Mountains aren't talked about much in terms of a fishery. It is, we were fishing, like you were saying, at the base of Mount Washington, and there's water running down everywhere up there. So
yeah. And you know what else? There's a whole lot of dispersed campsites in the national forests. In addition to that, Dolly Copp campsite was huge. I want to say they probably had at least 500 campsites in there.
Oh yeah. I
mean, it's huge. But then there's a ton of dispersed camping, really nice up there, and it's relatively close to town too, so you can kind of enjoy that wilderness feel without and still, as I am often prone to do, get up in the morning and run into McDonald's for sausage McMuffins and iced coffee. So yeah, definitely put it on your list. And then I wanted to ask you guys this, because on the way back I drove down through the Catskills, Have either of you fished in that area or explored that area at all?
I have not fished up that way at all. Never made it up there.
So I'm from the Poconos. It was only like an hour and a half for me. So I would fish up that way. That's where I caught my first brook trout from New York, and that's actually where Nate Camp and I did the BHA AFI Tenkara Skills 101 camp. I was right there in the Catskills. I forget the lake that we were off of that the river was running into, but yeah, we hosted it right there. It's perfect, perfect
Nice.
water.
You know, I didn't fish because I didn't want to just pick up a license for a day, but I did stop a few places and get eyes on some stuff, and it looked like a lot of really broad, flat, consistent water, but then it would go into like broad sections of riffles. So
Yeah.
not a ton of structure in between these flats and the riffles, but to me it was easy to see why this was traditionally dry fly water.
Yeah, correct. Oh yeah, for sure. Perfect Tenkara water. Next time.
Well, you know, yeah, like my thought was that it kind of deserves its own dedicated trip to explore. You know, I didn't really want to tack it onto the end of White Mountains.
It's a pretty big area too. Like it's a pretty big area below that around next there that it covers.
Yeah, you know, it was beautiful from there all the way down into the Alleghenies.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a nice drive.
cool.
So, Anthony, you had something planned?
I did want to talk a little bit about Dennis had that article about fishing etiquette that was published. Dennis, I don't want to. I'm going to say his last name wrong, so I'm not going to say it. If you know how to pronounce it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So he had an article about fishing etiquette, and it was kind of interesting. And I just thought maybe we could talk a little bit about that for people who haven't, haven't read it, or for new anglers. If anyone new is listening to the podcast, I think it's kind of maybe there's some things that you're not used to. If you're, say, you grew up fishing in ponds for bluegills and that kind of thing, and then you're headed out, you get a Tenkara rod, you're headed out to the trout stream. Things might be a little different. The expectations of other anglers might be a little different, I mean, I know we probably all had that experience where you're fishing and someone, comes right up on you or fishes the run right in front of you, things like that. And I think often it's I mean, sometimes it might be willful, but I think a lot of times it's just ignorance, like people just don't know to give you some room. Cause I think there's some folks, like I see, like growing up, like bait anglers, that they may go to the stream and fish one hole for hours at a time. They just stay there. They put up a chair and they sit there. So if you're coming to Tenkara from a different background, just be aware of that kind of thing. Like when you get to the stream, if it's a small stream, and you see a car parked in the pull off, go up half mile or whatever to the next pull off. Or what I've been doing, the thing that I've been doing lately, just for a challenge, and some of the streams that I fish, if I see a car in a pull off, I'll go there and I'll just check first to see where the person went. And if they went upstream, I'll fish up behind them, just to see, just because I know someone fished through there. And so I think, I'll go try to find the spots that they didn't hit, and utilize the same stretch of water. And so that's kind of what I've been doing lately is fishing behind people on purpose, just to see, and it's surprising how effective it can be. So I guess that was the other thing I wanted to say is if you do find that I used to get really discouraged if I found that someone had gone ahead of me. Now on really tiny streams that might affect it, but on medium to larger streams, you can fish right behind someone pretty successfully. I found, and I don't know if you remember one time in the driftless mat, there was you and me and Rob Worthing and Jason Sparks and his dad and Jeff
Yeah.
and we were all on a fairly small stream and just kind of all fishing along. And I was fishing, Rob was right in front of me and I was coming behind him catching fish, and it was kind of eye-opening on a small stream. So I guess that's the other side of the coin is if someone does get in ahead of you, don't get too worked up about it, like you can still I found you could still have pretty good luck, you know. The one thing I did want to disagree with Dennis about, though, was the parking lot. Did you read the article, either of you?
I read the article. I can't remember specifically because
Yeah. So
Same.
he talked about like someone chatting you up in the parking lot. And I actually don't mind that. I actually really enjoy if someone, you know, because often when I'm fishing by myself. I may have been by myself for a week. I know, Matt, you travel a lot, you know, like, so if someone wants to chat me up in the parking lot about how the fishing was, or, you know, whatever, I actually am usually up for that conversation. So I just want to say that if you see me in the parking lot, don't, you don't have to worry about offending me by talking to me.
Yeah,
What
you
do
know,
you guys think?
not only am I not offended by talking to people in the parking lot, I'm probably the guy that Dennis wishes didn't pull up next to him.
You're the one.
Because I'm like, hey man, what's up? You know, what's up? Because especially if they're locals, like if you're cool, you know, like if you have a good conversation and stuff, they'll typically kick you down some information.
Yeah.
You know, like I've found some pretty cool pullouts that way. You know, some interesting fishing. You know, and so like I think it always pays to be respectful and kind everywhere you go, but it especially pays to be respectful and kind to people who know the fishing spots.
Yes.
Think smarter, not harder. Yeah. But I think Anthony hit the nail on the head with expectations versus etiquette. I remember reading Dennis's article and just remember thinking that might be an expectation. Like maybe some people don't like to be talked to, you know, before hitting the stream or after or whatever. Or I really can't remember any of the other things that were mentioned. But to me, they're like expectations more than 100% etiquette, because I don't usually fish with anyone at all. So I don't, depending on someone else's flow, like we talked about how you're like, I fish really slow. And then, but my expectation is I go, you know? So I think there is a point to note between etiquette and, it's like common sense though too. I think etiquette should also be common sense. You know, if you see someone fishing, you probably shouldn't be fishing right above them, you know, or just go into the hole right above them. I don't know. Because my point of fishing is just to be away from people. So why would I want to be away from, like, near people while I'm fishing? But yeah, I think most of what he said was spot on. But expectations, I think, is a real thing too.
Yeah, and then like when you know, I know like I've, you know, you have to change your expectations. I think based on where you are. You know, I was fishing a frying pan in Colorado, and the green jay catch was going on, and there's literally a person on every rock. I mean, you had no expectation, you know. So if someone came in front of you, I mean, I couldn't feel too bad because there was really nowhere to go, you know. So, so I wasn't gonna get too upset about that, you know. But yeah, so this kind of like brings up, I don't know which one of you mentioned it before we started talking, was the sort of like the terrain we grew up, or the places we grew up fishing, and the style of fishing that we developed, and it kind of leads into that a little bit. Who brought that up? Was that you, Matt?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. So, you know, like we kind of came up in fishing in different areas, and I always see the big divide like east and west, kind of, you know, a lot, as far as like the kind of fishing that you can do, you know, like casting and stuff like that. So like I know fishing with Matt, he's like a really fast angler. Like he wants to move, you know, and I'm super slow. And I think like, so like where I started fishing, like fly fishing, was on like limestone spring creeks. And I started fly fishing at like Fisherman's Paradise, where there's no wading allowed. And it's kind of groomed banks, and you can sight fish, and you can fish there for, you know, hours without really moving anywhere, you know, because you're fishing to these fish, and they don't get super spooked because no one's wading in the water, you know. Kind of fish. So that's where I started, and I would do the thing, you know, it was before Tenkara, so I would change flies, and I'd keep changing flies, and you know, and so that's kind of where I started fly fishing, and I think on those limestone spring creeks, like you can do that. I still do that. So I'll spend, you know, like now that I have the opportunity to get out a lot, I'll go out and I'll spend, you know, hours on maybe a stretch that's 100 yards long at the most, and I'll just fish that stretch because I know the fish are there. I know there's just so many fish. If I'm not catching them, like I know, like I want to know what I can do different to catch them.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of defines like the way I fish a little bit. And even on the mountain streams that I would fish, they're fairly short. Like like there's not a lot of water. So if I move real fast, I'm gonna be up in a tiny little, unfishable section pretty fast on a lot of the brook trouts. So again, I kind of started to learn to fish slow. But I think mostly it's those limestone streams and just that like when I started fishing them, I had like this like weedy idea, of like the landed gentry on their like chalk stream in England, and they would go out and they would fish all day. You got this beat that you fish and I don't know. That's kind of the way I do it. And I think it gets to like this idea I've had for a long time about like it's like music, right? So like you can fish like in jazz or whatever, like in rock music, you generally play like you're in a key and you play in a key, right? And you kind of but in jazz you play the changes, as things change, you play differently with each chord, instead of in a mode. And so I kind of think of it like that, right? You can fish a stream and you can fish its changes, or you can fish the same way and you it's like you're playing, you're playing a different harmony over it. Do you know what I mean? So you can choose to fish the changes or you can fish your own way, and it's like a different way to attack it. So nice. I don't know, I like that. Anyway, I got to develop the idea a little bit more, but it's something about harmony and melody and the chord changes of the streams, but anyway, I talked enough. How about one of you guys talk about your where you came up?
Amanda?
Do I talk? Okay, sure. So I guess I'll touch back on Oni School because I honestly haven't used, other than in Europe, I haven't used too many long weightless lines longer than my rod, just because of the tight streams that I fish. I am still not 100% comfortable with it, if that makes sense. I'm comfortable. I've been practicing casting and but I think because of what I'm used to and where I grew up in fishing such tight areas, I'm still used to that smaller line, if you will. Like I was fishing mostly like a 12-foot line with a 8-foot, or 12-foot rod with an 8-foot line, or 10-foot line with maybe 3 feet of tippet, just because of where I'm used to fishing. But I will say, like Anthony was saying, with like the harmony and like feeling out the river or the creek or whatever you're fishing on, I have, ever since Europe and ever since Oni School, really started developing a feel for different flies. Like I kind of lost control of my confidence fly because I've been fishing so many different flies, if that makes sense. I've been experimenting. So growing up, and like because I haven't been fishing Tenkara so much, I still feel like I'm in that novice stage where I still have so much to learn and so much to like absorb. I'm very confident on like those tight streams that I grew up on, but I'm starting to get used to different flies. So I don't know. We'll see where my Tenkara journey goes, but I've been experimenting with other things. Fishing in more open areas has really opened up the doors with the Oni technique because I'm able to cast further. I was with Luong and he's like, "Oh, you got that fancy casting." I was like, "Yeah, I don't know. It feels good." Like I don't feel like I'm wasting any motion. I'm also a nurse in the cath lab, and when I'm scrubbing with the doctor, everything that I touch, I immediately use it. There's no wasted motion in anything that I do. I grew up playing sports, no wasted motion. So I really am like fine tuning things, and this is way off topic, obviously, but I'm enjoying getting into other modes other than like what I grew up on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it makes like total sense. Like when you're talking about like flies, like I feel like I'll go down this thing where I get really good at fishing one fly, like one particular fly. You know what I mean? You get so fine tuned to like the weight of that fly, where you
Correct.
fish it,
Oh, 100%.
yeah, and all that stuff. And then like, so just to change up to something different, I feel like it's almost like starting over. Like
All over.
since I did that podcast discussion with Jonathan, I've been going back to wet flies, but fishing them differently than I did, before. Like before, I would swing wet flies mostly, either swing them in front of me or downstream, crossstream, whatever. But mostly it was that. And then after talking with him, I've been doing a lot more of the surface, trying to create that surface action that he talks about.
The dabbling, yeah.
Yeah, in different ways, because that's I start before Tenkara, I would do that with a Western rod. You put on a dry fly and a nymph below it, and it's a little more difficult with the heavier lines, but you could do it mostly downstream. You let it go downstream, and that the current pulls it out. The nymph anchors it, and you can then bounce that dry fly up and down like a cat, usually like a caddis fly or something. But you can do it. So it's a technique that people use in regular fly fishing too. So I've been kind of combining his thing. So I've been doing the like a nymph, a weighted nymph, because I like the way it feels when I cast it, and and then a wet fly on top. But instead of swinging it, I've been bouncing it and catching just a lot of fish. Like
on which one? The wet?
Yeah,
one?
on the wet fly bounced on the top. Yeah, like just a ton of fish, and surprisingly, an amazing amount of fish on the nymph. Like as it's bouncing up and down, which I would never do on purpose. So like I'm popping it up and down like
it makes you
like
think.
very actively. And the nymph is fish are taking that too as that thing pops up and down. In addition to the dry fly or the the wet fly, but the wet fly but fished. Popping on the surface. And then with the weighted nymph, you can do it upstream too, and I like the weighted nymph because it gives you a lot of control over the action, like because you got the anchor,
Yeah.
With the two wet flies, I've tried that too, but I don't have the feedback, that I like. But anyway, so like what you're saying though is, you get so fine tuned to a particular style, or a particular way of fishing that it is like, it can feel like a totally new thing when you do something new, or even something you've done in the past and go back to it. So, which I think is like, now that I have the opportunity to fish a lot, I've been having a lot of fun doing that. Like just doing different things just for the sake of it. When I didn't get out as much, I wanted to, it was
catch fish.
Do it in the ways I knew. I still want to catch fish, but it's fun to have that, and it is eye opening, that I can be pretty successful in different ways. So anyway.
Very cool. Well, as far as my stuff goes, I mean, I came up on a much more open and plentiful, set of water than both y'all did, and I think, even though I think I probably would have a tendency to play through the course quickly anyway, like I think that definitely has affected. Just the sheer amount of open water and the driftless has affected my. There's another section. There's another place to pull off. I'm never going to run out of that sort of thing. So, but then also like I really feel that like for the style of fishing I'm doing with wet flies, typically on the surface with manipulation, looking to draw strikes, like the browns are gonna hit it in the first couple of passes. Like typically I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna sit there for 10 minutes and cast the same brown tucked up underneath a lunker structure and get much success. I know I'm gonna get, those first 2 or 3 ambush passes, and the browns will typically, then if they don't want it, they're not going to take it. Or if they take a swipe at it and I miss them, they're probably not going to come back up. And yeah, I mean, I guess it's a numbers game, but I figure at that point it's attrition, like, well, I could, try to beat a couple more fish out of this hole, or I can step up to the next hole and get my, a couple of fish 3 up there and have some chances on some fresh ambush passes versus water that I've already tired. And some other differences I've noticed is, like some of the anglers I've come across from like, this was Eric that with Tenkara guides with Rob and John and everything. But when I first fished with him for the first time, he was trying to get he was really surprised at how soft my landings were on my cast, and he was like, you got to punch through you got to land hard and everything. Well, he's thinking this very fast water that he's fishing out there on these large rivers and everything, and that makes a lot of sense. That especially if you're fishing an unweighted fly and you want to, get it into the water column and start playing it, you got to punch it in there. But it's the opposite for us in the driftless. Like I feel like I like stretch it out and let all the energy come out of the line and try to float it down into place a lot of times. So to me, it's just really interesting how the terrain characteristics really do prompt various characteristics in our own fishing. I think if a lot of people take a look at how they came up, they're gonna see even if they came up in a certain other style of fishing and are now fishing Tenkara style, I bet there's still lots of artifacts of those methods and philosophies still at play in whatever style is there. So
Yeah,
I
like
think it's a really cool thing to study.
everyone's foundation will definitely affect them for the rest of their fishing career. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I bet people who came up being taught by loved ones, like you're carrying some of their style on with you too. That's a really cool
Yeah, that's cool to think about.
legacy to be passing on as you teach someone to fish or as you learn how to fish and everything. So I'm a big fan of that concept in general. At the Oni schools, I always kind of like to talk about lineage a little bit and how that knowledge transfers down through kind of generations and branches.
Yeah, there's definitely and even personally there's certain ways that you fish that are nostalgic, either because they were passed on to you, or it's just the past wet fly for me. I started fishing that when I lived in Maine, and I can remember I'd never fished wet flies before, and I remember the first trout I caught with it, and so maybe there's other flies that'll be just as good, but when I fished that fly, I'm back there. I remember it so specifically. And I think we collect these these memories that we and you carry them with you. They get I grew up fishing spin fishing with bait, and so we would use maggots and mealworms for trout, and so nymphing was the natural way to fly fish for me, because that's what I was doing, and so for me, nymphing is that, it's the memory of fishing with my dad and on these mountain streams with bait. It's kind of the lineage there. So yeah, that's a good point.
I love taking my sister out and watching her. I joked around, I was like, it's in our blood, but as Okinawans, we're on an island, everyone's fishing, you have to fish to live. My mom was from there, so it's got to be in her blood somehow. I don't know. I truly do feel Tenkara, some sort of fishing. I'm obsessed. So it made my heart so happy to see her doing her thing and catching fish, and she wasn't even scared. She was just touching the fish, and I was teaching her wet hands, and I can't wait to hear what she does in the Philippines. But yeah, that makes me very happy.
Upcoming plans to go fishing or on any trips? Or I know, Amanda, you're in a bit of a work jag right now.
Yeah. So I recently, West Virginia is my last stop, and I gotta hit West Virginia maybe in the fall. That's hopefully my next bigger expedition. Maybe take a long weekend up that way. But I am gonna go in September to Bishop, California, and hang out with Long and help him with his Tanuki boot camp. But I was invited to I forget what town it is. someone that I've been in contact with is going to take me fishing out there too. So the Sierras, I'll hang out with Martin, Sagehard, Tenkara up there, hopefully in the Northern Sierras. So that's my next at the end of September, and hopefully hit West Virginia as well.
Sounds awesome. What about you, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, I'm now as this heat wave is sort of passed. Yeah, I just want to get back up to, central Pennsylvania and hit some more. Some of the places I tried to go to in the spring that were just too big, like they were just large. Like some of the new places I found were kind of larger rivers. So I'm curious to get back to them with some lower water. Check the temperatures, make sure temps are good, obviously. But I'm excited to try some of that stuff. And yeah, I'm like like settled into like a routine, like I'm so comfortable, with like I have no urge to travel right now anywhere. So
Nice.
I'm very happy with like where I'm fishing and just trying new techniques. Like I went out with some streamers again and like
Yeah, that's cool.
had some monstrous like explosive. I landed fish, but I missed some big fish that were just
like the takes were explosive, or
yeah, they were like in inches of water, sending streamers up under these overhanging branches and just like you see like pike or whatever, hitting, it was like that.
That's wild.
Just easy, so I'm excited to give that. I know it's not Tenkara, but
What rod are you using for that?
I mean, I'll use any rod. I'm not super picky, but
yeah, I'm just curious because like streamers, we fish for bass down here, especially in South Carolina. So I'm just curious what you use.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably just like a I might have been I was using the Satoki.
Cool.
Yeah, the Tenkara USA Satoki, which is nice, and I love zoom rods, so that one's nice, and that can handle bigger fish and bigger stuff. Although I cast really light lines with the too. It doesn't have the tactile feedback of like a soft rod, but it still casts the light line. But yeah, that's what I was using.
That's cool.
And small, like a small stream, like a jig.
Of course,
like it's like a jig streamer.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to George Daniel. It's like I don't know if I think he got the pattern from somewhere. It's called a Michigan Fry, so it's kind of like a marabou. It's got like a gold dubbing body and like olive and black marabou to look like a fry of a brown trout.
I'm heading west here end of the week. I'm going to head up to the Driftless for a couple days and enjoy the water there, which hopefully should be good to go. Just because I can't drive past it, while it's fishable. And then I'm going to head for Badlands National Park area. From there over to Devil's Tower, and then from there west to Yellowstone, and probably over into Idaho after that.
Did you see that road is that pass is make sure not to include that one road in any of your traveling plans. The pass from Jackson over to Idaho.
Yeah. Well, I won't go through a lot of Michigan's kind of floody right now too, and South Dakota and everything. So we'll see how it is. But I've never really traveled this Northern Plains route. So I'm pretty interested to spend some time really scouting it.
Are you going to fish in Yellowstone?
Probably. I
was there 2 years ago on a family trip, so I would have been out fishing by myself, and I chose not to go. I didn't want to fish in Yellowstone by myself,
With the bears?
Oh, with the bears. Yeah, you bring something up is that this will actually be my first foray into brown bear country. I have spent a lot of time in black bear country to the point where I'm probably, I don't want to say too casual, but like I'm really used to it. Like they don't really bother me. But like, yeah, brown bears, grizzlies, that's a different story. And because I have a fridge in my car, and so that's typically where I lock up all my food. And so like, yeah, the van is some protection as long as the bear decides that he's, not really after it, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be fine. But it is.
That's what they
it
all
is-
say. Final last words. Ah, it'll be
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, no, nothing to worry about. Yeah. No, I'll probably go ahead and get a big old can of bear spray, and I'll just be, like typical bear country stuff as far as being careful with your food and your toiletries, and even the clothes, like not sleeping in the clothes that you put food in, stuff like that. And it should be good, but in the back of my mind, it's definitely going to be looming a little bit. But yeah, like I do plan to fish along the way, like I haven't done a ton of scouting, but I know there's trout. I think there might even be trout in the Badlands area.
And the Black Hills for sure.
Yeah, so I'm definitely heading through there, and I'm gonna take it kind of slow, and set up camp for a week at a time at several different points, and yeah, really looking forward to it. So that's my plan. I gotta be back in August to guide. I donated a guide day for a TU auction, and we got rained out last week, so we've bumped it to August. But yeah, I'm
Cool.
super excited. Actually, I can't wait to get out of here. So.
What do you think of, have you guided people before, like in an official capacity, Matt? I guess you've been out, you've done those schools and stuff. It's not
Yeah,
quite.
I have, I took, I did professional guiding in the driftless for a couple of years, and probably only did maybe about a half dozen to 10 people a year that I was doing it. It's a different thing from instruction. It's a different vibe, and I enjoy guiding. I enjoy being with people on the water, but instructing is a little less pressure because like as Amanda can attest, we tell people like you're here to learn, not catch fish, type of thing. Like as a
But it's
guide,
the opposite.
yeah, like as a guide, people are expecting a fish on that hook, and it's a different story, and it's a different vibe from guiding your friend or your family member, going out with someone that when it's a stranger that is paying for that experience, and you've got to make it happen regardless of the weather or any other circumstance. It's a little bit more stressful than I'm looking for. In
Yeah.
instruction, I can just say this is the material. I can answer the questions about the material, and I don't know. It's like I said, it's a different vibe. But I do ultimately enjoy guiding because it's being on the water, and I love being on the water with people. I love watching people fish, and just getting to know people through fishing as an experience. So I'm excited about that.
Cool.
Well, that's about, I think, all we've got for this episode, unless Amanda or Anthony have any last minute additions.
No, it was nice catching up with you guys.
Yeah, it's been really fun hanging out. And please like and subscribe and click through our links. And thanks for listening. We had a great time hanging out with you. We'll catch you next time.